Good morning, everyone. My name is Dr. Cheryl Lentz, and this is my weekly message to my students and my tribe, if you will. I've noticed a lot of conversations I've had this week because of COVID has helped people be stuck and felt the need to be paralyzed and the ability of what do I do now? And I have a method that I thought it would be good to bring out from the shadows just a little bit, and it's called the WRIST method. WRIST is what do you do when you get stuck? And so I think it's appropriate for us to look at this a little bit because the helping hand is the one at the end of your wrist. WRIST. So we're going to go through those steps quickly in there to offer you some things you might think about when life gets a little bit tough and you need to have a little bit of a strategy of how do you get unstuck. So the first one of the WRIST method, right? WRIST, it's an acronym, is we change our words. And I want to be able to offer, first we change our words, then we change our rules, then we change our imagination and play, then we change our space, then we change our tools. And I want to talk about each one in turn because it's an amazing opportunity for you to be able to look at thinking how we talk about things, how we frame them, how we use language. And think of, I'll give you an idea of how I named one of my companies, for example. I have a publishing company, as you may know, the Lentz Leadership Institute, and I have two award-winning imprints, uh, Pincero Press and the Refractive Thinker Press. Well, Pincero Press, I actually used a different language to find my company to get a name for it. And Pincero actually means critical thinking in Italian. And so I named my imprint for where we publish business books, Pincero Press. And so I want you to get thinking about when you get stuck, get an opportunity to change your language. Think of what a word looks like in Spanish or French or Italian or Japanese or something that's going to get you thinking differently. Because when we look at something from a different frame of reference, our thinking changes. Einstein spoke different languages, sometimes thinking in a different language to change his focus. I remember when I was in college and I was studying for my German final. It scared me because I was starting to actually think in German and translate into English for about 3 weeks. Thank goodness my other finals that week could understand that my studying shifted how I think and how I framed. And so I actually started thinking in German and it was just crazy. So I want to be able to look at every language has different patterns. It has different meanings, different ways of thinking, and that's what we want to do. So when you change and you get stuck, think about how you change your reference. And it doesn't necessarily even have to be a foreign language. You can change the language of your industry. I happen to be a musician as well, and sometimes musically is very different. Artistically is very different. Engineers think differently than doctors. Lawyers think differently than hospital care workers. It's just a matter of a different frame of reference. And I used to have a friend of mine who says, oh, I don't go and hang around with the people in my industry. I already know how they think. I go and hang around with people to know how they think differently. And so let me encourage that whenever you get stuck, find a different way forward, find a different language, find a different point of view, find a different reference. One of my classes right now, we're talking about the balcony and the dance floor. There's a very different view when you're standing on the dance floor with your partner's arms around you than when you take a step back and you go to the balcony or when you go to the mezzanine. Think opera, think different musical abilities, and you want to have that ability to just look at it from oh, if I look from it upside down, I look for it right side up, you're going to think differently. And the seeds of solution is how do you think differently. So remember the first W of WRIST, change your words. Now we're going to look at the idea of change your rules, because here's the idea that you're looking for when you're stuck inside the box is we have this idea we become stuck and we think that we have these boundaries that are around us. So think of the phrase, that's the way we've always done it. And that's what we do here. And we've done it this way for years. And the point is, why? Part of what I'm thinking with some of my students in there is looking at why do we think the way we do? How did we get here? Should we stay here? Do we have to stay here? And so the idea is maybe we need to change the rules, and we know that more concretely now because of what's happened with COVID-19. That little bugger has changed the rules for all of us, some of them forever. So the question is, can we make rules more on our terms? And so instead of getting stuck inside the box, remember part of my critical thinking is the idea of thinking is inside the box and critical thinking is beyond the box. Refractive thinking is beyond the box. This is where we as doctoral scholars live. We're looking at the what if, what's next, what comes as a result of all of this in there. And we need to be able to change and adapt and to be vibrant and not get stuck. So when we're going to look at that, think about changing the rules a little bit. You know, the only thing you can't change are the laws of gravity. Everything else is pretty much open for interpretation. So let's look at, can we change those rules? Can we change the boundaries? Can we change the parameters of the conversation? All right, so that's the R. We change our rules, because if there wasn't a box, what would be? If I gave you a magic wand and just say, poof, you have the ability to do whatever you want, would that change the conversation? Might it shape it just a little bit differently? Because when we change our rules, we change about what we think and how we think when we use them. So let's see if we might give that one in there. All right, now we're on the I, W-R-I-S-T. I stands for imagination and play. When we get stuck in our thinking, it's really helpful we have to look at our creative side. Think about what makes you happy. What makes you silly? What gets you out of your comfort zone? I know a lot of us, we're a little bit isolated right now, so we're having to get really creative. Music is my saving grace. Between my Alexa and my piano, and just looking at how different kinds of music helps me have different imaginations in there. When we change our imagination, we change how we think, we change how we feel. And here's something that's really important. Many of us think that first we have to be happy and then our face shows it and smile. It's actually the reverse. When we go ahead and smile, right, we go ahead and change the outwards, the body kind of follows. So I want you to think about, can we go and imagine? Think about when you were a child and you would sit out and watch the clouds. Think about the fantasies that you would have and the daydreams and all the other opportunities. Because remember, as a man thinketh, so he is. If you think you're going to be sad, you're going to be sad. If you think you're going to be happy, you're going to be happy. So what do you choose? And this is the part we can change and choose our imagination and play. And the more creative we can be, the more happy we can be, the better we can be. So change the I in wrist, because when we change our imagination and play, we change how we think. All right, so let's look at the S now, this space. Here's the part that this is going to be really important, particularly right now when we're self-isolating. If you don't like where you are, find a new room. Get up. If you're self-isolated, go sit in the bathroom. Go sit in the bathtub and pretend you're on a nautical adventure. Go sit outside. Go sit on the balcony. Go take a walk. Go look out the window from the upper part. Go sit in the basement. Go look at a lower part. Anytime that you're changing your space, you change the energy around you. But here's the secret. Some of us can't change always our physical space. So change their mental space. Go to YouTube and take a tour of the Louvre. Go take a tour of all of the things that you wanted to see in the world. I have a dream to be able to go see the Trevi Fountain in Italy and to go and take the Italian tour like the Da Vinci Code. I love old churches. And that's my dream when we get back to normals. I want to go and see them all, every single one of them, and all the pipe organs and all the statues and all the history. And I want to throw my 3 coins in the fountain. So think creatively. Remember, outside the box. You don't have to physically be there. You can go see the pyramids. You can go on a kayak. It's all here. And this is the wonderful power of the mind. The mind doesn't always know the difference. It just knows that you put yourself there. So change your space. If you just need to get up for a walk, change a room, change a direction, sit on the floor, sit on a couch, sit on the piano. I sit on my counters in my kitchen when I'm doing something different, or I sit on my swing outside with Gracie. But you need to change and change your orientation. And I guarantee you, sometimes you'll be able to do it. I live across from the water, and water is very healing for me. And so I always have to have that. When I get sad, I'll take Gracie for a walk, and we'll go sit in front of the river, and we'll just, or the lake, and we'll just let it just wash over us. So don't be afraid to change where you are, whether it's the room you're in at the office, whether it's the room you're in at the house, whether it's even the room in your backyard. Sit in a different way. Instead of looking this way, look that way. You'll be amazed at how things seem new. Change your space up. If you have to redecorate, move the furniture around, do a feng shui. You've got to look at the idea of changing that physicality, whether here or physical. And sometimes maybe just put a chair in a different place. I look out my window outside because I have a 2-story, and I can look outside or I can look at the park, but you've got to change that image for you. All right, now we're in the last part about this, is to be able to look at, we change our tools, because sometimes we need to change what we're using. Maybe you change what you write with. Instead of a pen, try a pencil. Instead of a pencil, try a crayon. Ever get those really big crayons when you were kindergarten, you know, the really thick ones? It changes. That's how I wrote a book once. I had to get out of the ivory tower, and actually get into writing. And you can't write big words with crayons. That's what my mentor told me, and she was right. It was hysterical. I still have the notes from that book that I wrote so many years ago, and it was really helpful. That you want to be able to try new colors, try new tools, try new ways of doing things, is you want to look at the visceral. You want to look at, what does it feel like? How does it shape? Because write with your right hand, write with your left hand, write with a crayon. Remember when you smell that first box of crayons, instead of getting the 8-pack, oh my gosh, splurge, get the whole 64 and have all the different colors of the rainbow that's in there. But when we change the tools we use, we change how we think when we use them. So let's review and make sure that you're looking at how we use the wrist method. So now you have no excuses. You're never going to get stuck again, because the helping hand, it's the one at the end of your wrist. And that means we change our words, we change our rules, we change our imagination and play, we change our space, we change our tools. So all you need to do is make just a little shift, and the entire conversation will shift. So I wish you differences. I wish you challenges. I wish you different abilities to look at the world in a different way. I know sometimes it can be very scary, but if you just zig a little bit when you should have zagged a little bit, you can look at seeing a different way forward. And that's all we're trying to do with the wrist method. So anytime you get stuck, look down at your wrist one more time. Words, rules, imagination, space, and tools. Be safe, be happy, be well. You've got this. Bye-bye.